Next up, we have public comment, and I'll defer to Rachel. I don't know if there's anyone online from the public who'd like to speak, or do you see anyone in the general public?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay, thank you. And I think the only person qualified under general public would be Rich. Do you have anything to say, Rich? No, sir. A fly on the wall. Fly on the wall. Okay. We'll move along to the payables. Those were sent out in the packet. Is there any questions for staff on any of the accounts payable? Okay. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve. Second, Alan.
Initial motion was by Robert Kuda. Second by Alan. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion does carry. I see Ruth Kendall has joined us online, so maybe we can, I know Robert has a sign up sheet. Maybe you could add, you want to add Ruth, just filter in on the roster being in attendance. So, okay. Next up, we have the financial report for June 2022. And Rachel, you want to go ahead and talk to us about that?
Yes. So we are looking very good for revenues. We're going to come in ahead of what we expected, I believe, for sales tax, unless we take a huge dip at the end of this year, but usually we bring in more than the first 6 months. If you look at expenditures for our operations fund, line 31 is almost completely exhausted. It's because we have new Verizon cell phones that we paid out of that fund. So we can move those around if we need to open up some more for office supplies. Line 34 for professional contracted services. It looks unspent, but there's a bulk there for more power managed IT services support agreement that has not come out. So that's a bulk of that line item. Line 36, we are actually done with that. The GIS just came in much lower than what we budgeted for, but the budgeted amount is for our grant. So we just put 13.5 every year. If you look at line 43, airfare, it's pretty high. We're sending 4 people to the APCO 2022 conference, and that's why that's high. Line 47, we still have budgeted property insurance for the new building, which we won't start paying until we take over. Let's see, line 48, we still have some small amounts to come out of there, and then a pro QA that has not been paid yet. Line 49 is almost exhausted because we have so many new subscriptions that will need to go into our 2023 budget, but they were not budgeted for this year. And some of them have to do with Dawn coming on board and having new subscriptions. Line 50 was originally budgeted as our landlord tenant, but the coding has changed. So all that you see out of there is tax for the copy machine. And then you'll see the lease payments down below on line 61. And just an FYI, we only budgeted for 2 quarters of payments for lease payments, and we will probably be paying 5 more months of that. So those are unbudgeted lease payments for 2022 budget. Back on line 52 for the miscellaneous, there was a snafu at the treasurer's office. They sent us revenues that were supposed to actually go to them, and so we had to pay them back. So that's why that one's so out of whack. Line 57 is for repairs and maintenance, but most of that was budgeted for the new facility. And so we don't have any of those yet. And I don't know that we will have too much of that for 2022, but 2023 budget will definitely need that line. Line 59, moving expenses, that was just for John, and that will come out, that came out in July. So you guys will see some expenditure in there for next meeting. And then line 60 is prior period adjustment. It was just a voided check that was sent to the wrong vendor, so we had to correct that. And then, so that's the bulk of our operations. Equipment reserve, we still have Stancil payment to come out, radio console to come out, ECW phone system and servers. So That's what was budgeted to come out this year. And Stancil and radio consoles, I've already gotten some invoices for. They're just not showing on this one because they came in July. And then for radio reserve, a lot of that we're just waiting on Public Works paperwork to be able to process the invoices that have come in. And then our project, it is what it is. When the invoices come in for the different stuff for the project, that's where we're at. And then at the bottom, you can just see that we have our investments and our cash. And if you guys have any questions, I can answer them.
All right, well, thank you, Rachel. Is there any questions? Anybody online or in the room here?
Please, just one. Are we going to talk a little bit about the construction of the project? Okay, I'll have a question at that point.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Rachel. Appreciate the report. Next up will be item number 7. And John, you can go ahead and talk about this resolution that's proposed.
Yes, so this is this resolution has to do with adopting the salary and wage schedule for non-represented staff. These were the amounts that were discussed in the previous meeting last month. And this is the resolution to finalize what the board had considered at that time. And it includes a 5% cost of living for non-represented staff. It includes the bump in the benefits from $1,550 to $1,650 a month. That was approved, or that was we gained consensus on, I should say. And then the only other item in it was increasing the accrual rates just for accounting purposes. For example, if a staff member had accruing 6.67 hours per pay period, we changed that to quarter hours. So everything's 6.75 or 6.25 or 6.5, whatever that case is, just for ease of accounting. And it has a net effect of just under 2 hours annually per employee or per non-represented staff member. So this is the resolution to finalize what the board discussed last meeting.
Is there any questions for John? Reference that? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion. Reference resolution 2022-005.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, Kurt Saha has made a motion.
2022-005, and Alan Headley seconds.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next up is, yes, this is where we're going to have a executive session. So, Rachel, if you want to go ahead and give us 10 minutes.
Okay, so the best way to do this is for me to do a breakout room. So John, if you can join that breakout room when you see the option pop up, because I can't stop the live stream and then restart it.
Got it.
The 3 of them, you guys. Yep.
Oh, let me add you.
And we'll need Ruth in there as well.
Yep, she joined. Are you
Okay.
seeing the option now? Perfect.
Yeah. City of Longview.
Rude.
Oh, my word.
Hey, Brandon. They are in executive session. That's why there's no sound going on right now.
Oh, I had some issues on my end anyway, so that's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
There's no volume. I mean, sound.
Wasn't it? How about now?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, we're back in session. We ended the executive session, did not take any action, of course, in executive session. The next up, we have item number 9 is approval of resolution 2022-006. And John, would you like to present that resolution to the board?
Hey,
Yes.
John,
Yes,
I didn't write down what RCW you guys went into executive session for. Frank, do you have that information that you
I
want to send me later?
It's qualifications of an applicant for public employment, RCW 42.30.110, parents 1, parents G.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
okay, so item 9, resolution 2022-006 is a restructuring reorganization of non-represented positions at Calais 911, adding positions for an executive director, sorry, that's me, executive assistant / human resource administrator, and a position of budget finance manager with their related pay scales. And at this time, we'll, yeah, that's the resolution.
Okay, is there any questions for the executive director reference this resolution? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion the resolution to create these 2 new positions.
I move to approve. Kurt?
Hamilton, second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
Next up is item 10, the resolution, approval of resolution 2022-007, maintain an advanced travel account. John?
So last month we approved a petty cash account and to be petty cash / advanced travel. We've since learned from the auditor's office that the 2 accounts have to remain exclusive of each other. So this is asking to split those apart to create an advanced travel account. It would be the same as the petty cash account as far as dollars. It'll have $2,500 in it that gets replenished monthly in accounts payable. And then the next would be to amend, just for reference, to approve the petty cash policy and essentially removing the words advanced travel out of that account and that approval from previous meetings.
Okay. Is there any questions of John on that or any clarification?
Just a comment, you know, I appreciate you having to hear language talks to travel by the most economical means. I think that certainly makes sense, and we should all practice that, you know, in terms of sometimes flying is less costly than driving, depending on the mileage. You know, you have the rental car option available, which sometimes can be a savings as well. One of the items that I looked at here, and it's a suggestion, but under meals, you talk about taking advantage of meals that are included in the event, you know, lunches, dinners, obviously that's a given. What I didn't see, and I could have missed it, that we limit meals to the Government Services Administration per diem amounts. I see down below where you say that under overnight travel.
Well, can I interject? We're talking about this is the advanced travel account. This one, I think the next item is going to be the travel policy. They're 2 separate items.
Oh, I apologize. I thought they were together.
There's travel policy, then there's the account itself. So 2 separate resolutions.
Oh, correct.
Or
Then is
motion-
resolution
motion-
11 is the policy.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry.
apologize. Leave my comment.
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure we're
Yeah,
clear
no,
on
it's
that.
good.
Didn't intermingle with you.
Yeah.
This is just, like John said, establish a travel account separately from petty cash. Is there any specific questions on that, creating that account? Okay, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion on the creating an advanced travel account.
Motion to approve Hamilton.
Second. You. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next up is.
Who was the second?
The
Huda, thank you.
next up is item 11, approval of a travel policy. So I don't know if there's any comments on that, John, you need to make, or we're going to address Kurt's.
No, go ahead, Mr. Saha.
So just going back, I mean, talking about, and again, the portion that I was referring to was the meals included in the same day travel. Down below in overnight travel, you talk about, the government services administration per diem rate. Up above, there's no mention, and I just wanted to make sure that at least from an administrative policy, that's how we would administer this.
I agree, and I'll amend this
Just for
policy to
clarification,
include that.
just for that piece of it.
Agreed. We'll amend this policy and bring it back next month.
Is there any other concerns at this time we need to address with that, or I guess between now and prior to the next meeting, the agenda going out, if you have any concerns, you can bring those to John's attention and clarify. Mr. Hamilton?
I have one that Kirk kind of touched upon it, rental cars, and I don't see it in here. Yeah. Did I miss something?
Under same day, well, again, it's under
Yeah.
same day travel transportation,
But
but perhaps not.
Not in the overnight.
yeah, usually there's something in there that has some verbiage that states that it, must be approved. That it's just not a given, or, in some cases there's shuttles and other things where there's not a need for a rental car. That would be my only other suggestion. I did pick up on the GSA on the meals, but
The other thing, John, and I don't know if you're aware, but there is a state contract for rental cars. I believe it may be through Enterprise, and that's something that I think we could take advantage of.
We do. We have a state contract with
Maybe it's contract.
Enterprise, and we use that regularly.
Perfect.
Under same day travel, it does talk about they're encouraged to use enterprise or national rental for rental cars on same day travel, transportation. And then transportation for overnight, it says that it will be administered the same as same day travel.
I'm also looking at that same page number 32 in your packet, the above, at the top of that page, it's actually under the same day travel. Item A is reimbursement calculated and does reference a GSA in that paragraph. So it is in both the same day and overnight, the GSA per diem rates.
Are there any further comments or suggestions on that? We'll go ahead and
So with those, I think it's good the way it is. The GSA stuff is there on both, and answer Mr. Saha's question, and Andy, we do reference the rental cars.
GSA is not under the meals, it's only under the transportation.
Oh, okay. So add it to the mills as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you. Or we could put a blanket GSA. We'll amend that. We'll get that squared away and bring it back. Thank you for that.
all righty. Well, we'll go ahead and I guess table that item and save that for the next meeting. Okay. Next up, we have approval of updated petty cash account policy. Don?
And this is again, just to take off the terminology of advanced travel from the petty cash policy that was approved.
Is there any questions on that? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the petty cash policy.
Bill Lamont, so moved.
Bill Lamont, do we have a motion?
Second.
Alan Headley, a second. Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion does carry. Next up is item number 13. John, wanted to talk about forming a budget committee for the next 2023 budget.
Excuse me. Yes. Excuse me. My voice works. My apologies. Yes, we would like to, my voice. We would like to form a budget committee to begin planning the budget, which would include assessing a user fee formula for the agencies. So I'm not sure what your recommendation would be for who should be or how many people should be on that committee. But staff would certainly welcome board input for the budget process.
And as far as staff, you find yourself, Rachel, anybody else? Staff,
Probably not.
staff. Does the board have any thoughts on how many board members should work with John and Rachel on this? I'd throw out a number of perhaps 3, if we could get 3 volunteers to do that. Do we have any volunteers? And I don't necessarily have to be board members, could be our staff members. Qualified.
I'd volunteer someone from the city,
Okay.
not myself. A suitable replacement.
Okay. And I know in my office, Katrina Harris has worked county budgets, 901 budgets in the past, and I think I could convince her to sit at the table.
That's me.
Scott, do you want to volunteer Brandy for that? Or?
Voluntold to be, I'll see if she has capacity.
So anybody else or any thoughts otherwise to your thoughts? 3. There could be another. The more the merrier, I would say, more input.
We probably have to keep, don't we have to keep it under 4? So we don't have a quorum?
For the, at least board
No,
members.
under 5, excuse me.
Yeah, that would be a quorum, so
Yeah.
They were actually.
Is there a quorum? So there- But if they're from your staff, that's okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I was wondering. One of us, I mean, I
Bill's willing to do it for the city, or you guys okay with being involved?
That's fine.
Either way, I think we're still okay if they're not board members.
Correct.
Right, yeah. And we had someone from fire service.
Well, I don't know if we need to formally approve this or just,
No, the bylaws allow the formation of committees. Doesn't need approval.
okay, so we'll have yourself and Rachel from 911 Center. Kurt's gonna have a person to be named later. And me and Scott will work on Brandy and Katrina, and then Bill will sit in for fire. So does that sound reasonable to the board then?
Yeah. Do you have a tentative schedule? I mean, are you thinking of starting here in August, September, or?
I would like to start in August, because according to the bylaws, and I would really like to do it. I know it hasn't always happened, but I would like to have a draft budget to the board by October 1. So that each agency can plan their budgets based on how many of your dollars we think we want. Just kidding. We want all your dollars.
And part of that, as you alluded to, we do have a formula in place now for user fees. It's a assess valuation, calls for service, and population, I think is all mixed in. And some magic formula comes up with our percentage of user fees. I think we'd like to look at that, revisit that formula.
Yeah, we'll revisit that formula. The formula now has sunsetted from the beginning. It's the use of that formula has ended. And for the last 2 years, there's just been across the board 1.7% increase. So we're really not using the formula anymore, other than deriving current fees, user fees off of the previous user fees with no alteration to it. So we do want to revisit that to something that we sure is equitable among the agencies.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. John will orchestrate that and make that happen, and we'll reach out to the named parties and I guess the unnamed parties.
By the way, you did a wonderful job last term in administering that process, so
Well, thank you.
you did.
Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts on it.
Let's get that in the minutes. All righty. Moving forward, we have law tech and fire tech. Chief Brightman is here. So I don't know if you want to step up closer to the computer.
I can be loud. You guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
The law tech has met 3 times since we fired up this film and CAD system. We've had some good collaboration between the user agencies and dispatch. how to address some of the new issues that we're dealing with and how to do some things that we used to do differently a new way. One of the things I wanted to share with the other user agencies that we talked about, Don Turrentine pointed out, some agencies had limited data on their plans for their mobile data terminals, and they're going to want to switch those to unlimited. We're able to do a lot more now. There's more data being pushed through. And if you have data caps, you might end up overrunning those. We also established a new protocol for all point bulletins. We're using the messaging system within Spillman to do this, having the officer do it directly unless they're not available on a in progress call. And that's limiting those to violent felony crimes, suspects, or endangered missing persons. And there can always be exceptions, but the goal was to keep people's inbox from getting overloaded with, random cold cases. Aside from that, we're going to be switching back to a monthly schedule for our meetings. We've got a lot of the initial startup issues ironed out for now, so we go back to monthly meeting. That's all I've got.
Thank you. And you see Brandon Poff. Brandon, are you on the Zoom?
Didn't see.
Yep, I'm here.
There we go.
We opted not to do our July meeting, so I don't really have an update. We're on track to have our meeting in August, the second Monday at 1300 hours.
Okay, well, thanks, Brandon, for that. Next up, we have the director's report.
All right, thank you for that. I apologize for my little coughing attack there. I don't know what happened. So as to, we talked about the budget committee, and I was going to talk on that, but we already did. As to staffing, we currently have 19 dispatchers to the floor, 2 that are in training. One of those we believe will be done within the month. The other one within maybe 6 to 8 weeks behind that. We have revamped our Critical test. Critical is a testing software used to test aptitude for dispatching and test memory, typing, mapping skills, and things like that. Turns out the test that we had was not what it needed to be. The scoring matrix was off a little bit. So we've revisited that. It's been rebuilt. We've actually sent it out to 3 candidates on Friday, and we're waiting those results to come back to see what our progress will be for hiring some more dispatchers. So we currently have 8 non-represented staff. One of the issues that pops up is overtime. A lot of our dispatchers are burned out on overtime. For the month of July, there was about 300 hours of overtime. For August, on the schedule for the month of July, about 300. For August, we're looking at over 600 hours of overtime. We are right now, we have myself and the supervisors and the leads, and who happen to be guild representatives as well. We're looking at a different schedule model. There's some options there that will, quite frankly, it'll have built-in overtime. And as I understand from, again, history, not seeing anything documented, but from history, from what I'm hearing, the concern with the staff, with the dispatchers, is that whenever they've come up with a schedule that includes known overtime, that the board has shot it down. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm not aware of that before my time. One of the models that we have that we're considering does include scheduled overtime 4 hours a week, 8 hours every pay period for overtime. It's just a thing. It will, this new model, reduce the overall overtime. And I'm confident in that. And when we bring the model that we come up with as the preferred model, I'll bring that to the board and we'll discuss the numbers of overtime versus expected overtime, historical overtime, and things like that. We want to be thorough and make sure that it makes sense before we bring it to the board. The guild is asking that if we do this in an MOU, that out of order, that we bring it to the board first to get consensus. So they know when they take it to their people and they go through their process, that it's not just going to be shot down when it comes to the board. So with that will be my intent. We'll create this model. We'll be very thoughtful and intentional with how it would roll out, how it would happen, what the impacts would be. And then we'll bring it to the board for discussion. Then the guild will take it back to their side. We'll draft the MOU and go through the process from there. So that's coming to a board meeting near you in the future. The next item is for me specifically, the board gave me, when I was hired, a very specific list of expectations. Thus far, in my assessment, I'll meet with the sheriff. I'm right at that, just over the 3-month mark. I'll meet with the sheriff as the chair. We'll review those expectations and where I'm at with that. One of the expectations was continued professional development, and I intend to continue that. I started that before my employment, and I am continuing that, a business management administration degree. And we do have a line item in the budget for tuition reimbursement that for the last few years we haven't used. We used a small portion of it this year. So it is my intention to use, and I'll of course run it by the chair at every step, is to use some of that for tuition reimbursement as it's laid out in the budget for my professional development as well.
You want to talk about your degree you're seeking university?
Yes, through Western Governors University. Now, some of the coursework is typical general education type coursework. I would not ask for that. The things that are specific to culture, climate, business administration, accounting, financing, human resources, all of those other pieces of that degree, those are things that I would submit to the chair for reimbursement for my continued professional development. So happy to answer any questions about that if there are any, but that's part of my report. Okay. Next is climate and culture in the dispatch center. As you all know, quantifying climate and culture is a difficult thing. It's hard to quantify. You either have it or you don't. We all know that there have been divisions and struggles in the past. Are they all perfect right now? No. Will they be perfect in the next 3 months? No. But we are making headway. I think the general mood is improving. The staff have expectations of me. I meet with them one-on-one as much as I can. I'm continuing to meet with dispatchers one-on-one to get to everyone, to let them have their moment. I want to learn from them, get insight, and continue to build this thing. But so far we are seeing improvement, and we're pleased with, and the feedback I'm getting from staff is that we're pleased with where we're headed as an organization. Again, the collective bargaining agreement is now, last meeting was finally approved, signed off, and done. The guild is happy with that. They're pleased. They're appreciative of the work that the board did with them to get us there. I talked a little bit about scheduling. It's been a struggle, but they're actively working with us on solutions. That's been a grind. It's been a runaway train for these folks, and I understand that. I respect the impact that it has on their lives. But they're working with us. They're coming to the table with ideas, and we're making progress. And there's more trust within the organization than there has been from what I'm hearing. So I feel good about that. I'm confident with that. On to facilities update. You've all heard we're building a building. If anybody knows a good general contractor. We are moving along with Patriot, and Ian and Don, feel free to chime in anytime. We're having issues with the particular wall and how the flooring, the raised floor is supposed to go under it. There was a snafu, that wall is too low. My position has been, and I sometimes go there and apologize for being the bad guy, but I'll walk in and say things like this, we know that this wall is too low, right? And they say, yes. And why aren't we fixing it? Oh, we have a guy coming in tomorrow. Well, you know, this floor has been up against this wall for a month now. So why is the guy coming tomorrow and not 4 weeks ago? We're asking those questions now. We're having those difficult conversations. Same with the server racks. They say they need to x-ray the floor, the cement floor, to ensure when they mount the racks through the cement that they don't hit rebar and they don't hit conduit. So they tell us they need to x-ray the floor. My response was on April 11th was my first day on the job. April 12th was my first meeting with the contractor, and they were talking about x-raying the floor then. Here we are 3 months later, and I haven't seen an x-ray, and I want to know why and when. So we are pushing back. We're holding their feet to the fire on a lot of things. They have, Patriot, the contractor, has filed one claim about excessive cost of materials for the steel for the structures outside of the building. We turned that over to council. Council fired off a letter. We haven't heard anything back yet on that claim. We anticipate that will be the first of a few claims. So we're heading those off at the pass as we go. We have had theft issues. The air conditioning guy did some beautiful work connecting the condenser units and air conditioning units to the building with really pretty copper pipe. And somebody felt the need last Thursday night to go take that pipe for their own purposes. So we're having some theft issues. We're trying to hold Patriot accountable for that. We asked them about their fencing. They say, oh yeah, we have the fence with the lock that goes across the driveway there. And my response is, that's cute, but it doesn't do any good to have a gate when you can just walk around the fence on the other side of it. There are two sides that are completely not secure. They're not willing to do anything different. Their budget doesn't call for it. They're not willing to hire a security company to come in at night. Their budget doesn't call for it. So we're still discussing those types of issues. Right now, we don't have a substantial completion date, a date that keeps getting pushed. They're just not giving us a date right now. And I get that. And Deanna, tell me if I'm wrong, but I am still pushing forward and holding everyone's feet to the fire that I want us to be operational in there on December 1st. That is my goal.
Accurate.
And
He's very accurate with that statement.
Yeah, we are working hard to make that happen. I don't want it to sound, it's not a dig to anyone else, and it's not a boastful or prideful thing on my part. I think Patriot and the architect, I don't think anyone has stepped in and said, this is not right, this is not acceptable, you need to get it done, and this is what our expectation is. So since I've gotten my feet under me a little bit on this project, there's been more of that. We're seeing more action. They're taking action. They're taking us seriously as the owner. So that's where we're at on that. If there's any questions about the facility, I'm happy to answer those before we go to radio. Yes.
Question, are we still paying a project man?
We are.
What's his role? Yeah, because I was gonna ask the same, well, I'm at a loss here, why, we're in this place.
Yeah.
That we're paying $200 an hour. Yeah. That you're spending much time asking these questions that a typical project manager would be involved in.
I think last month's bill was $4,300 for the project manager.
That's a discussion me and John had prior to the meeting as well. So.
Yes, you're right. We do have a project manager. Norm Craybill. Norm reviews the RFIs, the purchase requests, he reviews the documentation that goes back and forth between the contractor, the architect, and us. He reviews those. He has been doing that.
Isn't he on site providing inspection services though when they're actually in construction phase?
He does come on site. I don't know what regularity or what frequency. I don't know that. We do have our facilities manager now, Brandon Starr. who's been doing a phenomenal job at being on site every day, asking the right questions. Andy, I don't remember his Hanson from Patriot, who's their project manager. I have conversations with him multiple times a week, and they're very appreciative that Brandon is there pointing out things, making sure that they're not missing things and learning all they can about the building. So that day-to-day interaction Brandon is doing, as far as the superintendent and people on site, as far as dealing with the contractor and the architect, I've been doing a lot of that. Deanna's been doing a lot of that. Yes.
Well, let me ask you a question. Norm's a good friend and I think a lot of Norm, but should we suspend his contract based upon, what I'm hearing and what we're seeing here?
And I'm not sure that suspend is the proper word, because it sounds like that we've kind of got people in those places now that could take over for Brandon and you. And so I'm not sure that the need for the project managers there right now.
As far as the review of the purchases and submittals and changes of orders and things like that as they come and go, Norm's eyes have been valuable on that. As far as the day-to-day holding their feet to the fire and making sure that the contractor's doing what they are contracted to do, I don't know that that's happening. I want to be very, I want to tread lightly here.
What is Brandon's job? I'm sorry, I don't.
Brandon is the facilities manager, and the idea, we hired him about a month ago, and the idea was that he would come on, become familiar with the building as it's still under construction, to know what will be needed and understand, maintain the warranties on the equipment and stuff when we actually take over. And he has actually pointed out some things that, quite frankly, the contractor missed, and he's been very valuable on that. And he's there every day. Every day he's there. I've taken for the last couple of weeks, I stop by there every morning on my way in, and I meet with Brandon. We chat with the superintendent, and they haven't had that kind of accountability to this point since Brandon's been on board. So as to Norm, do we need a project manager? There are certainly things that a project manager can and should do that I don't know. I'm not a construction guy. It certainly warrants further discussion. I agree, Chief.
Has his bill decreased since you stepped in? And is his bill gone down month over month to reflect maybe that he is not, that he can no longer doing some of the duties? Or has it stayed pretty constant?
I don't know Rachel, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
Has the payments for our project manager, Norm Crable, have they been pretty steady month to month, or has there been a decrease in the last couple of months?
I believe they've been pretty steady, but I'm gonna log in and just double check for you, so I'm not misspeaking.
I know that in his contract, there is a total amount not to exceed. There's a projected hours at that $200 an hour rate. So, and we're a little, I believe, Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're about 65% of the way through that. But you all, Chief, yes, you make a valid point. You all make a valid point. It does warrant further consideration and discussion, and I'm happy to have that discussion. Again, no disrespect to Norm. The stuff that he does well, and we appreciate that. But as far as defining scope, maybe there's some work to be done there.
I guess my concern is that on April 12th, you bring up an X-ray of the sport, and then was he there during that, or is he made aware of that? I guess I find that as a fundamental responsibility of project manager to ensure those are being done. That's at least my understanding. Any project manager I've ever situation.
I would agree.
I have family in construction business, and then you have project managers. It's not, that's why we hired Sam, is the 911 director, they have to do the stuff you're doing.
Yeah. I would agree with that. You're Correct. As to the X-ray, as to a few other things like that, that they get repeated week after week after week after week with no decision or no resolution. Yes, those things should have been handled by a project.
So, Mr. Chairman, is that something that you could meet with the director and Brandon about and see what we should do to go forward?
We could do that. I know, does anybody want an executive session on this? Can we do that, Frank, or
Sure.
is there a need to do that right now? Or just want to report back next month?
Well, I think that we could formulate a motion to give you the guidance to look at the end of the project manager's contract. Something to that degree.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, do you want John to meet with Brandon and Norm to get some sort of sense of transition and then come back to the board? Does the board want to go into executive session now?
I think that we can give the chairman that give him our blessing to do that. And let him evaluate it, do what he sees fit with it.
Sure.
Okay, so I'd make a motion to give the chairman the ability to review the project manager's position and see if that is needed. That's Hamilton.
Need a second. Any further discussion? Motion in a second. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that motion does carry.
Thank you. Very good point. I appreciate that. All right, with that, we'll move on to radio update. Yeah.
So. Go, hold on, I gotta get to my start of this. Notes. Deer Island. Bob Gray and I have had multiple conversations and dialogue. I am just waiting there's some insurance language that we need to address that's a deal breaker. And so he's currently working with Lisa from WCIA to see what would be acceptable language for WCIA. And the language is about showing Schuyler, the company, as a co-insurer, and we can't do that. And Frank, do you want to explain why with the WCIA, they're not really an insurance company?
Right, I mean, because what it is it's shared risk. So a entity that's not a Washington entity cannot be an additional insured, but they can promise to defend and insure. Basically, you change the words and they get what they want. So it's a matter of the people agreeing and understanding that we can't say it because they can't be insured because they're not a municipal corporation, but but they will back them up to insure, defend, and protect, which basically gives them the exact same thing. So it's just the issue of semantics.
So just waiting on that proposed language back between Lisa and Bob. And we have the plans and scope and what's going to happen at that site ready. So the final thing will be what that monthly fee will be. And I will say that Mark Palance was kind of doing the negotiating, but as you know, he passed away prior, and then we kind of moved away from the Deer Island. Now we're back. But Bob's been really great to work with and has made it really clear that he really wants to work with Palance. So they've been, I think, really reasonable throughout those discussions. Woodland. I put in a meeting with John today. I found an empty spot. Hope that works for you, August 3rd. For him and I to go make contact at a residence in Woodland. That is some property that sits up high, where if they're willing to lease a little section of their property, that we want to look into maybe putting a tower, just a monopole up there. There's a lot of complications with the Woodland water treatment plant. The latest one was they identified needing the city of Woodland will say, another location on that property. But due to a previous geo study, there's some concerns from Day Wireless that without a substantial investment in that, we wouldn't be able to pass the geo study without a substantial investment in some changes. And the actual location itself, they had scheduled to rent a crane on a nice day to see what the line of sight is, and for whatever reason that fell through, so that's on their radar again to reschedule. We are waiting on we did receive a microwave for the Castle Rock Abernathy site, but we're waiting on some other additional equipment, which is pretty standard right now with any kind of radio equipment. We're kind of looking at the same things with some of our facility project things of equipment arriving in a timely fashion. So as soon as we get that, we'll have Day up there to install the microwaves for Abernathy, Castle Rock, to Rainier. And we're also waiting on another microwave for the Ocean Beach, Hall of Justice, Rainier Hawk. And that's about all I have. Any questions?
Well, thank you. And also, Jamie Butler's office advises a $2.1 million radio project moving through the House. And once that gets through the House, it'll go over to the Senate, and Senator Cantwell and Murray are both on board with pushing that forward as well to the Senate. And I know Lewis County and Pike also requested radio funds under the same program. So far, so good on that. We should hopefully know maybe in the next 3 or 4 months if they agree on the federal budget, if we get that funding. So that would be great if we did. So.
I kind of have a question for the board. You don't have to answer right now, but we know that we have to do microwave replacements really throughout our system. And I have kind of a rough number of what those costs would be. That was part of the grant requests that we submitted to what do they call it? Expenditure, whatever that is, through Herrera's office. It has a name. Yeah. Because there's such a delay on the delivery of the equipment, the microwaves, I mean, there's 6 to 8 months delivery time. I would really like to purchase a handful of those now. We wouldn't pay for them until we receive them. The federal budget, they said the end of September, if it's passed initially, we would know. We do have funds in a radio replacement reserve fund that we can tap into if we don't get that grant money. But I would like you guys to kind of think about and consider maybe authorizing the comm center to start purchasing some of those microwaves.
Sammy?
There was a recommendation by Chief Herrera a few months ago to put together a committee with representatives from both law and fire, small and big, to discuss the radio needs for the county before we started determining what we're going to purchase with that grant money. That's still a feasible idea before we start purchasing anything.
I think that grant money was specific, wasn't
For
it?
equipment,
Project, so that would
and
be-
we identified that would be microwave equipment. And auxiliary. part of it.
And I would think maybe the law tac, fire tac got together, then probably the appropriate set form a new committee. I don't know if they meet together jointly ever, but that might be the more appropriate forum to have Brandon and Troy to get together and address those needs. Please bring it forward. And back to Deanna's proposal with board, is that something you could put in writing for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Maybe a breakdown of the total project, and I assume the 2.1 million is going to be comprehensive, everything we needed the system.
As far as the equipment stuff goes with relating to the microwaves. Because the total equipment piece is like 2.157.
But there was some things that grant would not, allocation would not cover.
Correct. There's literally, it is specific to equipment. So any geostudies or consulting or anything that is not equipment.
Originally, we went in with about 2.8 million, so it's not roughly.
Yeah.
And some of those didn't qualify. So I think, yeah, if you put a, maybe a proposal together on that.
So if we're seeking reimbursement from those federal dollars, we have to look at the language. Some say that we can get reimbursed if and when we're paying for it, but some will say we can't or even order the equipment until we get awarded the funding. And so we have to just make sure that depends on the grant or the funding source will decide whether or not we can even order the equipment and get reimbursed later.
I'll double check on that, but I think it was.
I've seen it both ways in any of the, so we just make sure the language is
Essentially,
accurate.
it's the plan, you're saying you can't
Yes.
get money to get by. Yeah. Maybe something you're already buying.
The other thing, I guess I kind of like to know, and perhaps you'll address this in your report, Deanna, is you said you wanted to use, some of the money and I'd like to know kind of how much that is, that commitment that we would make in advance of receiving the grant funding, if that were possible. And then the other was the reserves that we would use to do that. Are those committed for anything else at this time? I'd like to kind of know that.
Yeah,
If you could spell that out, kind of
I will put a full budget together on it.
what we're looking.
Okay, is there anything else from staff?
No, that's all I have for the director's report. Thank you, Deanna.
And I think I don't really have anything else, but get to the order.
Just go to the order, just my understanding, for a little bit about the 988, right? The new communications for mental distress concerns.
Yes.
How does that play out with 911, I guess? How do people know, how would I know if I should be calling 988, let's say, or 911?
So there's some information out there about 988. The state 911 office, it's incumbent on them to promote it, advertise it, let people know about it. And right now it went active July 16th as kind of a soft rollout. And so it's there, it's functional.
The 988.
The 988 is there. The state in beginning of August, mid-August, will start advertising it so the public becomes more aware of it, other than what they've read in the paper or seen on social media. There will be a concerted effort to put the information out there. The way it functions is someone who's having a mental distress of whatever nature can call 988, very similar to calling 911. The state is broken up regionally as to which mental health service they get. I apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head who it is for Calais County. For our region, it's one specific provider. That's who they'll get a hold of. Those people are doing what they've been doing for years. They have resources, they have people in place that can help with those folks. Of course, if there's an imminent danger or something that requires a fire or law response, that gets forwarded to 911 and we treat it like any other 911 call. Right
John.
now, yes,
It was Great Rivers Behavioral Health out of Chehalis.
perfect. Great Rivers, yes. Thank you. So they'll forward calls as needed to 911, and we'll take those calls and treat them as we have historically and provide that service. I know the questions have come up around, if someone calls 911 and says, hey, I'm having a mental health crisis, do we send it to 988? Right now, no, we do not. That is not part of the program. That's not part of we would have to eventually, after we learn more from the state on how this rolls out, there may be that option in the future. We don't know that right now. So as of today, anyone calls us, we treat it like we always have, and we send the appropriate response. But yes, we do anticipate that as it rolls out, as it becomes more accepted, more used, that should have an impact. We don't know yet what that impact will be. It should reduce some of our mental health issue as far as call volume. We don't know what that looks like yet. It's kind of an unknown. I don't think it's any surprise to anyone here that when the state comes up with a plan and they roll it out, it's not perfect at the first go. But we're getting there.
Does the state have a call center set up and?
The 988?
Yeah.
No, it goes to those individual health providers, in our case, the Great Rivers. It goes to them. They have people staffing it 24/7. And then there's also, again, one of those things that how well thought out it was at the state level, we don't know. Are they gonna start wanting 911 dollars? No. Are they gonna start wanting some dollars to fund it? Probably, but that's for the state to figure out. It should not impact our dollars.
Could you provide anecdotal information, maybe at the next meeting? How many calls that we receive are related to mental
Sure.
distress?
Happy to do that.
Just anecdotal, might be curious.
Yeah.
Percentage wise or something like that.
It's basically shortening the 1-800 suicide prevention number, essentially what it's working with. We've added some information on our site up in Lewis County, but it's shortening that 1-800 suicide prevention.
Can individuals call on someone else's behalf? You see someone having mental
Yes.
crisis, and we call
Absolutely.
that 988 number. Okay, I
Absolutely.
wasn't sure if it's just the individual that needed to call or,
No, the ads and the promotions include, family, friends,
okay.
info. The soft transfer to the 988 eventually may be a great resolution to our problem of the low acuity psychiatric patients that we're having to go see that we don't, to be frank, we don't have the training and expertise to deal with. It's not in our wheelhouse. But it could be a great solution.
And that's a great point. One aspect of this that I haven't dived into because it doesn't. But it's not a 911 side of the issue. Like I said, right now, when we get those mental health calls, we provide the service that we always have. We provide the appropriate response. Now, once law and fire are on scene, I don't know what your department policies will be or what that looks like for you. If you have the ability to just deal with it, or if you have the ability to say, hey, call 988. Those are the folks that can help you better than we can. I don't know what that looks like from your side. That's a departmental issue outside of my scope.
Well, it's interesting because, countywide, we've been employing these behavioral health specialists to work with our law enforcement teams to help address those individuals. And so I guess there's still,
Yeah, I'd like to-
remains to be seen.
I'd like to see further discussion, I'll speak for LPD. Before 911 would transfer those calls to 988, considering the current provider for our region. I don't think that, I'm careful here, that organization would serve our citizens of Cowlitz County in the way that we want to.
And I would need to see them get referred to 988 and have them refer them right back.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. So right now, like I said, there is no method or no process for 911 to send a call to 988. So right now, we continue to handle those calls as they come, as we have in the
I
past.
think that is the safest approach.
Yeah.
It's not both saying you got it at the same time.
Yeah, right now that is not in place. 911 will not transfer to 988.
But conversely, and I don't know if you're going there, Robert, or not, but should 988 be referring calls to us maybe because, they're up there in Lewis County? I mean, they might try to talk an individual through something, but they're not here, right there, trying to provide that in-person assistance.
That's the exigent circumstance, certainly they should refer to some of these. Suicide, that sort of thing, and then we have behavioral health folks too, for intermediate step as well.
That might be a conversation that we need to still have.
We get those calls now from concerned family, neighbors, citizens of, hey, I think my neighbor, my relative, or whoever's having an issue, can you go check on them? We would treat that the same way. If it's from outside, the people that may not be on site, but request a welfare check or advise us of some information, we'll still process that the same way.
I didn't mean to get us off track.
No, perfect. That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
All right, is there any other things for the good of the order? If not, we'll stand adjourned. Our next meeting, by my calculation, will be August 17th. So we will see you then. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.